an artist. Now what?
You want to work at Marvel Comics? Draw comic books for a living? Draw all day in your pajamas? Well, this guy has done that. My interview today is with Marvel DC artist and fellow YouTuber Todd Nauck. Todd has had a long career in comic books, starting in the early 90s, working with Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld. He gained the reputation of being one of the fastest artists in comics. Deadlines? Pfft, no problem. And that helped him in his long career doing books for Marvel and DC, and even his creator-owned property. This is my interview with Todd Nauck. Thank you for doing this for us, Todd. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you, James.
For sure. Yeah, and again, me and Mark, we've been huge fans for forever, forever. Like especially like we talked about the new men stuff, and for me the Wild Guard stuff, and then of course everything you've done for Marvel and DC for sure. At the end.
Right on.
Yeah, right. So like such a long career you had, right? It's been quite a while, right? When did you start? When did you start working in comics?
I started like full-time professionally. Like this was my sole job in April of 1994.
Wow.
Was when Rob Liefeld hired me. But I'd done small stuff like the 2 years prior to that, kind of those little bit jobs that kind of slowly start to build, but you got to work other jobs to stay afloat.
Yeah.
But yeah, in April 94, when I moved to California to work at Extreme Studios was the big break. I was in the deep end of the pool now.
Right on. Okay, so let's go through all of that because I'm super excited.
Awesome.
Like again, I've been a fan for a long time, even way before you started the YouTube stuff for sure. Way back right now to that 1994 stuff. So why don't we start like right at the beginning then? Tell me about your childhood. What was it like when you were a kid?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm from Texas, born and raised in Texas in the Dallas area. Mm-hmm. And, my earliest memories were of drawing. Like one of my earliest memories was at my kitchen table, scribbling in a circle, going hamburger. Such a strong memory. So I'm almost certain I was drawing a picture of a hamburger. And I just love putting marks on paper, and at the age, I don't know, 2, 3, however old I was then, it was only scribbles. And I had this little children's book called The Diddle Daddle Duckling. And I had this green felt tip marker, and I was scribbling in that. And another strong memory is my mom coming and finding me sitting on the couch scribbling in this book. And she took the book from me, and I thought, I'm in trouble. Even at that young age, it's like, I should not have been doing this. She sat down next to me and took that green marker and started drawing little stick figures on the pages that I'd already, jacked up of this book. This book was, now, destroyed. So she started drawing these stick figures, and seeing these people come to life on the page just astounded me. It's like she was like a god creating life. And I think that was a big inspiration to me to want to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you still have that book?
I do still have the Diddle Daddle Duckling with my mom's stick figures and my 2-year-old scribbles in it. Yeah, I do.
That's insane. Do you have that on Instagram or somewhere? I should
post it. I should go dig it up out of the box and post it. Yeah, my earliest works, these scribbles and my mother's stick figures that inspired me to do what I do now. Yeah, absolutely. I should do that.
That's fantastic. That's great. So you knew from then on, you knew that you were going into some sort of artistic route, you would say?
I just love to do it just for the fun of it. As I got older and things started to take shape, and I started, my figures started to become heads with arms and legs sticking out the sides. Right. Bert and Ernie. I knew Ernie was a horizontal oval and Bert was a vertical oval, and then just stick the arms and legs right off the head. And it started to progress, and I started drawing my favorite cartoon characters, Looney Tunes, Hanna-Barbera. Started creating my own characters through elementary school. But I still didn't consider it really a career option. I just thought this is just something you do for fun. I thought every kid loved to draw as much as I do. You come home from school, pour yourself a bowl of Captain Crunch, put on cartoons, after school cartoons, and draw. That's life, right? Wait, kids read books and play sports? When do they find time to draw? This is madness.
Right.
But it wasn't until I started collecting comics in 8th grade, when I was 13 years old, starting with the Secret Wars comics there of the mid-'80s. I was pretty much an 80s kid / teenager. And that's when I started collecting comics. And a year later, a friend in high school, I was a freshman in high school, he said, you're always reading comics, you're always drawing characters. Have you ever tried to make your own? And that just had never occurred to me. So that night I got home from school, or that afternoon I got home from school, took some printer paper, folded it in half, and wrote and drew an 8-page comic book for the rest of that day, like into the night, and completed a comic book. And it was terrible, but it was so much fun. I knew this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Now I got to teach myself how to get good enough to get hired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So this was in like high school, you would say, like your
High school, yes, I was 14 years old. It was
right
like November 1985, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
wow, the exact date. There you go.
yeah, because it was that life-changing moment. It was just like
Yeah.
the light bulb came on. It's like whatever I thought I wanted to do before, because I wanted to be an actor. I was taking after-school acting programs from
Oh, really?
7th grade on, and that's the course I thought I wanted to go. But once I drew that mini comic, I knew this is it. This is so much fun, and people get paid to do this. I want to be one of those people.
Right
And
on.
that was one of those watershed moments that just put me on a path.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. That's great. Were your parents supportive of your career choice at that time? Yeah.
Thankfully, yes, especially my father. My father was artistically inclined as well. He designed and built houses, but he liked to paint and he could draw anything. I remember at age like 8 or 9, I asked him to draw me a picture of Spider-Man, and that just blew me away. That just out of his head, he drew Spider-Man. I don't know how accurate it was, but it looked accurate enough to me, and I wish I still had that drawing. That is, if I could get that drawing back, it'd be such a treasured piece for me, because it was so exciting to see my dad, do that too, to draw something and bring a character to life on the page. But yeah, when I was 17, he sat me down and he said, Todd, I don't care what you do. Just do the best. Just do the best you can. Be the best at whatever it is you do. Just do the best work that you're able to do, and I'll be proud of you. Take a shot while you're young. Don't, get locked into some, 9-to-5 grind and live the life that he had lived through his, after college, through his 20s into his 30s. He worked a job selling pharmaceuticals, and that just wasn't the right fit for him. And it took him a while to take the risk to start his construction career. And so he didn't want me or my sisters to spend our 20s and 30s or longer doing something we didn't want to do. It's like when you're young, you've got the time, you've got the energy to pursue those wild dreams. So he says, take a shot. And if it doesn't work out, I'll still be proud of you, because at least you took a shot, and there's no guarantee it will work out, but at least you'll know. And then you can get the 9-to-5 job, and do whatever. But at least take that shot. So he was very supportive, and my mom was a little nervous. She wasn't sure this was she goes, do people really get paid for that? It's like, I'm buying these, that money's going somewhere, and someone's got to, people aren't doing these for free. So she wanted me to be a commercial artist, graphic designer, or at least study that so I could have it as a fallback. But I didn't want no fallbacks. It's either this or nothing.
Right.
And yeah, so definitely very supportive. In fact, my dad went with me to my first big. Now, I'd gone to smaller Dallas conventions to meet editors, but he went with me to my first New York Comic Con.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
To show my portfolio, where I started making some contacts with Marvel editors, and that was really special to have him there, for him to see the world I was looking to get into. It really opened his eyes. And I remember the trip home from that and him saying, wow, it was really interesting seeing the other artists' portfolios, because he kind of had this discerning eye. So some guys had strong figure work, but their backgrounds were terrible, and vice versa. So it was really fun to be able to kind of talk with my dad at that depth, even though he didn't really collect comic books beyond his childhood years. He understood the draftsmanship of it all, and to have that kind of conversation with him was very special. I know a lot of people don't get that with their parents, so I definitely count that as a huge blessing that I had that support.
No, that's fantastic, and especially the advice that he gave you. I think that's fantastic advice as well, for sure. And that totally, for sure, must have been a great inspiration for you to continue doing what you were doing. So what was your action plan then? How did you? You decided that you wanted to get into comics. So what did you do to get into comics then?
Yeah, so I kept making mini comics in high school. I still have all those. They're, terrible. Not even my wife has not even seen these high school mini comics I made, but I made those through my high school years. And I thought, some artists break in on sheer talent and passion alone. I'll do that too. Why go to college? Why waste my time? Why take the I did not take the SAT test. My wife is just astounded that I do not have an SAT score. It's like, I'm not going to spend money to give up a Saturday to take a test. Everybody's stressing out. Why bother?
Right.
No university is going to teach me what I need to know. Forget it. I'll break in on sheer talent and passion alone. After a year and a half of that, after high school, I realized this is going really slow.
Right.
I was doing the Dallas comic book conventions like every 4 months. They do a Dallas comic book convention, and editors would come there, especially with this one Marvel editor who's a native Texan. She'd always come out so she could see her family. So I got to see her over and over again, and I showed my portfolio to anyone who would look at it. Got such brutal critiques. My first one was so brutal that when the person who was critiquing it was done, he goes, if you can handle a critique like that, you just may make it in this industry. It was terrible. But it was just like those 4 months just to get a few nuggets of knowledge was really slow going. And it's like, I don't know I'm working at movie theaters and grocery stores to pay the bills. And it's just not happening fast enough. So I was on the couch watching MTV, waiting for to go to my shift at the movie theater, and the Art Institute of Dallas commercial came on, and that was the school my mom was trying to get me to go to get that commercial art degree. And I thought, you know what, maybe it's time. Maybe I do need to pursue some sort of education just so I can level up faster. Maybe I need someone teaching me some things. I think I was at that age, at 18, 19, I didn't want anyone to tell me what I was doing wrong. I was too insecure for that. Like, if you tell me, oh, this doesn't look right, devastate me, Right. I didn't want to be challenged. But by 19 and a half or so, I realized I need that. If I'm truly serious about this, I got to start taking these brunts. I've already had some brutal critiques at the conventions. Now let's just get to school and have an instructor kind of help direct me. And so that once I enrolled at the Art Institute, anything they taught about commercial art and graphic design, I just filtered that towards comics. How can I utilize this knowledge towards creating comic books? Life drawing classes, design classes, perspective, anything there. It's like, how can this work for what I want to do?
Mm-hmm. So it was a design course that you took then? It was like
we had all sorts of different design. I mean, typography, graphic, like logo design, menu design, album cover design, all sorts. Like, it was a 2-year program, 4 11-week quarters. And I had 5 classes each week, whether it be a life drawing class, a design class of some sort, marketing class, all sorts of color and composition, perspective, which was a great class. It's like, oh, perspective, I'm going to need to know that. So illustration, different styles of illustration class, fashion illustration class, which I loved because we had those elongated figures. And it's like, this is the closest thing to drawing comics is this fashion illustration class. And I had a great teacher there. I loved her. And so those, anything and everything there I was learning. It's like, how can I use this to make my comic book art better? And one of the biggest things I learned there, I didn't really realize this till years later, that these projects, having to turn in a project each week for each of these 5 classes, taught me time management and how to navigate deadlines, which was a huge experience that I didn't even realize how that shaped me so that I could meet the deadlines of drawing comic books. So that was I think a fantastic lesson that I didn't even realize I was learning at the time, but really paid off for my career.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. So after this education, I assume you were still trying to draw some comics during school as well.
Oh yeah, I was doing sample pages, and I was making mini comics, and that's when I created Wild Guard in 1992. This is when I created Wild Guard and started making Wild Guard mini comics, which looked way better than the ones I did in high school.
Right, that's great. So how long then? So I assume you graduated that particular course then?
I did.
Yes. So and then after that, so how long after that did you when you got your first comic book gig then?
Actually, I got my first comic book assignment. It was a small assignment, but it was my first one for Marvel while still in art school.
Oh, really?
I had 6 months left of art school, and that one editor that kept coming out to the Dallas conventions, her name was Renee Witterstatter. She edited What the, Marvel's humor comic, John Byrne's She-Hulk, and a few other titles. I can't recall the other titles she edited, but my stuff was really cartoony at that time, like super duper cartoony, like Mad Magazine, What the style. So she said,
Right.
I'll buy a 1-page gag off of you for what the? Send me some ideas. So I sent her a bunch of ideas, and she liked 2 X-Men ones. She goes, put these together as 2 panels for 1 page, and I'll buy that off you. And that became Mutant Mishaps that ran on the back cover of What the number 21 in August of 1992. So that was my first paid published work. Then I did small independent stuff for the next year and a half. And then January '94 is when I went to that New York con, made a contact with Fabian Nicieza at Marvel, and he started having me do tryouts, and he invested a lot of time in kind of giving me great critiques. I'd draw up the whatever sample plot he sent me, sample script, send him the photocopies, and then like a month later, I'd get the copies back with his Sharpie blue Sharpie marker notes all over it. And it's like such a great education.
Oh,
And I kept doing that through all of '94. I'm sorry, 1993. That was all of 1993. January of '94, I should say. So move everything back 1 year through '93. I was doing that. January '94 is when Rob Liefeld discovered my Wild Guard mini comics. A college buddy of mine at the Art Institute. He took my mini comics, showed them to an artist who worked for Rob. He liked them, took them back, showed them to Rob. Rob liked them. 2 days later, I get a phone call, said, I saw your Wild Guard mini comics. They're really cool. I want you to come work for me.
Wow. So you never even applied to Rob, right? So
Oh, I had.
Oh, you
I
had.
had sent
Okay.
in, I was sending samples to Marvel, DC, Valiant, Dark
Look,
Horse,
right? Yeah.
every Image studio. Yeah, it was, and I got rejection letters from everybody. In fact, I got my latest rejection letter from Rob the same week that he called me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and that was the thing. That was one of my first big lessons. Was don't try to draw what you think the publisher or editor wants to see, because that's what I was doing at the time. I was trying to adapt to, well, I'll make it look like what Marvel's doing right now. I'll try to do this Valiant style for Valiant. I'll try to draw on the Jim Lee style for Jim Lee's studio and Rob's style for Rob's studio. And that's why I kept getting these rejection letters. But my mini comics, which I was still very insecure about, didn't want anyone to see. But my buddy Jaime thought differently and showed it. And when I got hired off of those, it's like, well, I do my mini comics just the way I do my art. I mean, it's influenced by all my favorite artists and the flavors of the day, sure. But I'm not trying to do anything for anyone else. I'm just doing it purely like this is how I do my art. And that's what got me noticed. That's what got me hired. So it's like, don't try to be everybody else. Just be me, which is a challenge in itself to do.
Absolutely, for sure. But that's fantastic. That's a great story. So with that, I know back in those days, like you would actually have to move to Extreme Studios. Is that correct, or did he get you to work from home at first?
He offered me the opportunity to work from home, and at that point, I was living in Pennsylvania because my family had moved to Pennsylvania. So after I graduated art school, it's like I'll go there to keep expenses low while I start paying off these school loans, and that made it easy for my dad and I to drive out to New York City for that New York Comic Con in January of '93.
Right.
So they said, you can work via FedEx, fax sketches and FedEx pages, or you can come to California and work in studio. And I'm like, I want to come to California and work in the studio. I want to be in the mix. I want to be around everyone and be a part of that creative excitement and energy. Because, I mean, Image Comics was still really new. It was like year 2 of Image Comics. And it's like, this is like the place to be. I don't want to do this remotely. I want to be in the middle of it all, and I'm so glad I did move to California to work in the studio.
Right on. So what was the first book you did for Rob?
Rob had a series for me to do. It was called Bad Rock and Company, where Bad Rock from Youngblood teamed up with different characters from the other neighborhoods of the Image universe. So, Grifter from Wildcats, or The Pit, or Fuji from Stormwatch, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So that's those times, like what kind of timeline did he put you on? Did he was it the classic tales? But I'd love to hear your perspective for sure.
So I came in with my own perceived notion based on the information I had gotten from the questions I was asking at the Dallas cons, the conversations I was eavesdropping on at Dallas Comic Cons. I see some pros talking at a table, and I just kind of hang out, waiting in line for an autograph, and they're like, "What are they talking? What's this Jim Lee guy talking about? I want to learn, They're giving out the industry secrets, and I want to hear this. And I overheard someone say, I do not remember who said this. I don't even know if they worked for Marvel, but they said, John Byrne says the Marvel rule is 2 pages a day.
Wow.
Clear as day. That's why I heard this, and I took it as gospel. It's like, if that's what John Byrne says, that's what I'll do.
It's gotta be.
So I trained myself to do 2 pages a day.
Yes,
So when I get to Extreme Studios and Rob, the editor Eric Stevenson gives me my first Bad Rock script, it's like, it's go time, and I start doing 2 pages a day, and Rob's like, what? It's just like,
yeah,
this kid is churning out pages like right and left. It's like he was shocked. He was shocked that I was getting a book penciled in 2 weeks.
Right.
And, so they started giving me, if a book was late, give it to Todd.
Right. Yeah.
I started betting cleanup on a lot of titles.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. So how long did you work for Rob then?
I worked for him from April 94 is when I moved out. So he discovered me in January 94. April 94, I moved to California to work full time. And I worked for him for like 2.5 years till like September 96 when he shut Extreme Studios down and then moved on to do Maximum. That was when kind of my time with Rob ended. I wrapped up doing some Power Rangers comics for him, and he shut the doors, and I moved on to try to get work at Marvel and DC. So 2.5 years with Rob.
Right on. What was that experience like? What was that whole? Well, because I assume you haven't worked in a bullpen since then, or
I have not. That's correct. Yeah.
So
I've been.
Yeah,
so it was crazy. We're all, it's a bunch of guys, mostly guys. There are a few gals, but mostly guys in our 20s, working in this this high-rise office building in Anaheim, California, next to Angel Stadium. We're like on the 10th floor. So we're in our shorts, and it's the mid-90s. So we got our flannels and our rock and roll or comic book t-shirts and caps and Extreme Studio Letterman's jackets. And riding up the elevators with all these, suits, who worked in law offices and investment firms, and they kind of give us weird looks. Sometimes they wouldn't even ride on the elevators with us. And we it was just like creating comics and playing. We'd have Nerf guns and Hot Wheels racetracks and ping pong tables and video games, and then just cranking out comics and sketches and stuff. So it was a really wild time, and it was still in the early days. It was before the bubble burst in the where the speculator market, kind of the bubble burst, and comic sales weren't as great. So I came in just as the roller coaster was hitting the apex there. So I just missed out on all those sweet royalty checks, but Rob did pay a generous page rate, and that was fine by me because I was doing 10 pages a week. So ka-ching. So it was a really, wild 2 years. I can't believe how successful I was as such a young green artist. I had so much still I had to learn. It was, like I said earlier, being thrown into the deep end of the pool. I was just treading water like a wild man, just trying to stay afloat. Learned a lot in that time, just through my whole life, trial and error. Just get in there and make it up as you go along.
Right on. Yeah. Did you work with Pat Lee?
I did, yeah. I mean, we worked in the studio. We didn't work on a project together, but Pat. I remember when Pat came in. Yeah.
No, I used to be Pat's background artist. I was his background artist for 2 years. So when you were describing how it was at Extreme, that's pretty much how it was here at Dreamwave. All of us in our 20s, just going to work in chores, and same type of experience, right? So
totally,
I must have gotten that from Extreme for sure.
Yeah, he brought that culture to Dreamwave, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I think so.
That's awesome.
Nice. So you were done with the Extreme. Now trying to get into Marvel, DC. What was that experience like? Was it having published work? Was it a little bit easier for you?
In some ways it was easier. In other ways, it was a little depressing. I was a little dejected. It was just like, oh no, I have no contacts at Marvel or DC. I'm starting over at square one, essentially. And that was just like really kind of rough emotionally. I was not producing now at the same rate I was in the studio. It took me like a month to draw a 4-page sample sequence to send to Marvel and DC. So I was sending a sequence to Marvel 1 month and DC the next, and just back and forth. This was still mid-90s. Internet was just now public, and I didn't have an email address, so everything was snail mailed in, and it was slow going. There was an editor at DC that was responding to my samples. He just didn't have work for me yet, so I kind of had to wait on that. And so it was about 10 months from when Rob shut the doors, and I started, started sending in the samples to Marvel and DC,
Right.
slow going. And as I was approaching, it was 1997, approaching San Diego Comic-Con. It's like, okay, 2 months till San Diego Comic-Con. If I don't score some contacts at that con, then I will just consider my time in comics done, and I'll move on to something else. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of that soul-searching moment. And 2 weeks before San Diego Comic-Con 97, I get a call from DC Comics, from the Legion of Superheroes office, saying Mike Carlin, the editor who had been sending back letters saying, like your stuff, just nothing yet. He said, Mike Carlin dropped your samples on my desk and said to give you some work. So you interested in doing some Legion of Superheroes? And it's like, absolutely. And it's like, okay, now I'm in at DC. Took a lot of stress off of that San Diego 97 to score some contacts, because it's like, I'm already getting contacts. So that kind of started getting me in the role. And now I was working at DC. And I was being considered for this upcoming project. Actually, as at the San Diego 97, walking past the DC booth, and an editor sees my name badge and recognizes my name and calls me over. He says, I don't want to say anything official, but just know that your samples are on our desk, and you're being considered. You're one of like 5 artists being considered for this new series we're doing. Don't say anything. Just be chill. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? What? You can't drop a nugget on me like that and just leave me hanging. Oh my! Like, so it was like, I was just wondering, what is it? Until later in the summer, started getting phone calls from the editor in charge of that project. Turns out it was Young Justice. I was being considered for Young Justice. Wow. And a couple months later, I got the job.
You got it.
And then now I'm working full time. I'm launching a full time new series with DC, and it was a thrill.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you worked off and on, I assume, for both companies, or all companies.
Yeah.
From then on, was work pretty much regular from that point on, or?
No, not always. There'd be those, when I was on Young Justice, that was 5 years of solid work, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But once I finished Young Justice, there wasn't really a project waiting for me afterwards. So that's when I decided to bring Wild Guard to Image Comics and do that. But that's essentially, self-publishing, and I wasn't really bringing money in. I was putting a lot of money out. There was no crowdfunding at that time in 2003. So that was kind of a risk, but DC asked me to draw the comic book based on the Teen Titans cartoon. So that was like, okay, that's bringing money in while I'm trying to put money out for Wild Guard. But it was really ebbing and flowing from then on. 2006, I got plugged in at Marvel on Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man because Peter David said, hey, Michael Ringo's leaving the book. I'd love if you came in to fill his spot. So that kind of got me plugged in at Marvel. So there'd be times where it's like tons of work. Then occasionally, you go for a couple of months without work, which is terrifying as a freelancer. It's like, will there ever be anything, coming up around the bend? But thankfully of late, it's just been project after project. So in fact, this year has probably been one of my busiest years that I can recall, just between comic book projects and tons of covers.
Yeah. Talking about tons of covers. You've been doing a lot of those face covers for every book, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
No, you're one of the fastest artists there is right now. How long do each of those covers take you? They must not take that long.
Those headshot covers are a huge blessing because it's just drawing a giant head. It's pretty easy compared to drawing anything else. If you have to draw, compose this scene with full figures and backgrounds, it's just ahead. So I've got 6 of those to do right now, and I'll probably have them done this week because
you'll probably have them done today, don't you?
Very possibly. I did sketches for 4 of them yesterday, just amongst my other work. So it's like they're really fun, and it's so amazing to see how well received they are, that people are buying. They want to collect them all. They're buying titles they wouldn't usually buy because they have to have every headshot. So we've probably cleared well over 50 of those headshot covers of what's been released and what is to come. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. Congratulations. That's like you said, a huge blessing. That's so awesome. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell me, like you said, works before. In terms of freelance, sometimes you're waiting for work, sometimes you have too much work, sometimes you have to turn down the work because all the projects come at once, stuff like that. Like how and maybe you could talk about it as yourself or people that you know. How does the comic book artist kind of make it? Like in terms of a living, right? Like I know conventions are a big thing, or more recently, it's definitely a big thing. Like, what are ways comic book like with creators? What do they do when there isn't work coming in to try to bring in some of that cash?
Yeah, I'll definitely speak from my experience. Supplementing the income, conventions, commissions, and original art sales. Occasionally, there's the side gig. I've done designs for like animation. I've drawn children's storybooks for Disney Publishing, or logo designs, just small little things here and there sometimes come in. It's like, oh, I've got the time, I'll take it on. It's some income, it's fun enough, and it plays into what I like to do anyway, though my passion is comic books and telling stories in that format. But, if I can do a children's book, why not? At least it's a Marvel children's book, that's fine. So those are huge. Conventions are fantastic. Just because just the vibe of a convention is fun, because you're meeting the people that enjoy the same thing you do. So that's fun and a great way to supplement the income.
Like in the 90s, you must have been like a rock star at these conventions back in the day, right? The extreme guys, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy because I barely I think I had one comic book out, and I remember being at San Diego 94 as one of the Extreme Studios guys at the big Image Comics booth and just seeing the lines. Right. And it's like, I know they're not here really for me, but they're still coming by my way because I'm one of the artists of Extreme Studios. So that was a pretty wild rock star sort of moment. I remember the first time I took my girlfriend, who is now my wife, to her first convention. And this is still in the 90s for San Diego Comic Con. So it wasn't as crazy as it is now, but it was still the biggest con of the year. I had my, my application and my form to get my badge. I'm already registered as a pro. So Dawn sees the line of people and she goes, okay, we got to find the end of the line. It's like, no, Don, we don't have to find the end of the line. We just go right to the door and I just flash my paper and they're going to usher me to the pro registration booth. And she was like, wow, this is incredible. She was amazed that it's just like, that was kind of my little rock star moment there to show off in front of my girlfriend. It's like, we're just going to stroll right into the pro reg because we're all set. We're not attendees at this con. We're pro. So
there you go. There you go. Then you asked her to marry you. There you go.
I did. She goes, "How can I turn down a rock star like this?"
Yeah. So do you do a lot of conventions then in a year? Do you do a lot?
There was usually I would do maybe anywhere from 8 to 13 a year. Mm-hmm. So, hitting a lot of my favorites like San Diego, New York, Emerald City, Phoenix, C2E2, as well as hitting other parts of the country. And sometimes if I get an opportunity to get invited to like an international con is always a thrill, and getting to see another part of the world is, Donna and I love that opportunity. We'll extend our stay so we can do sightseeing. But with the pandemic, I have not done a con in 2 years. Right, and it feels so weird. It's like,
sure, yeah.
I did a store signing in Phoenix this past weekend, and that was my first time on a plane in 2 years.
Right.
And my first comic book related event in 2 years. Right. The last one being the Las Vegas Great American All American Convention in November 2019. So it's like, it's been 2 full years since I've done a comic event, and I was glad it was a small store. Well, not really a small store signing, but a store signing compared to a comic book convention is going to be, smaller. First time to do something like that, and it's like, wow, I'm out of con shape. I got to get my con stamina back up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It is a grind for sure. Like, well, when would you say that it started? When you started doing these conventions, like on a regular basis?
Right.
Because it really wasn't like this. Like I would say, like for me anyway. Like I left comics in I think 2006. But if people were like selling prints and doing all this stuff before, I probably would have stayed a little bit longer in comics because I would have had that thing going on. When did you start going to these conventions regularly on your own? To like
right. I've been doing San Diego Comic Con since '94, but like the first 7-8 years, I just went as a pro and walked around, did my signing at the DC or Image booth, and then just enjoyed the show floor. I think it was 2004 or 5 that I plugged into Artist Alley,
Right.
and would do, sit there and do my commission sketches. Then around 2006, 7, okay, introduce a print or two, start doing some sketchbooks I can sell. So probably by 2010, I was hitting a number of cons across the country. It went from just going to San Diego every year to hitting 3 or 4 cons, if I got an invite or chose to go on my own. So probably I've been doing that pretty regularly, where I'm doing 5 to or more cons since about 2009 or 10, I would say. Right. Yeah, 2009 was when I started doing lots of cons, because that's when I did the Spider-Man Obama comic, Amazing Spider-Man 583, and I got tons of con invites that year because the Spider-Man 583 was the hot book, and so I think I did 13 or 14 cons that year, and it's just like now I'm in the role here. Let's keep hitting these cons because it pays off.
Why not? Why not? For sure. With that too, of course you're selling your prints there, sketchbooks, original art. I'm assuming you're also selling
absolutely
at cons.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't have an art dealer, do you? Do you have?
I don't.
Yeah. You're able to handle that by yourself.
Right? I handle it by myself. It's slow going. I've got tons of art. Because I'm not moving tons unless someone emails me interested in a specific page from a specific issue. Then I check my files to see if I still have it. If I do, reply with a price and shipping options, and then if the person wants it, and I'll give them my PayPal, and we'll move forward and get the art out to them. So I need to start getting my art posted, like start a big cartel page or something like that, so that I can have more of my work available for those that are interested.
Right. Did you sell off all your Obama pages?
I sold 0 of them. See, that's the thing. There were people that wanted to buy a page from that, but I thought, you know what? This is so big that and it's only 5 pages. I should not break up this set. I gotta sell them as a 5-page. It's like, if you want one, you buy all 5.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not ready to sell it just now. It's either I sell it now, and I could. People was like, you could get $20,000 for those. It's like, yes, I could. I'm doing all right. I think long term, when Obama's out of office and he's, because it seems like a lot of presidents, whether you like them or you don't like them, usually later on in their lives, or we get past the either the joy or frustration, there's a better vibe about them years down the line. So it's like, this is like a retirement art here that I sell. It's like, I think I can get more than 20,000 if I wait. So. It's a gamble, but I'm going to gamble on a bigger take years from now. So I still have the pages, and I'm waiting for that day that someone comes with a big offer. So
they'll come for sure.
I hope so. If not, then I own a piece of history. So I'm good either way.
You don't lose either way, for sure.
Exactly.
You're still traditional. You still do everything the old school way.
No, I've now, in the past 4, I'd say about 4 years, I am now worked in digital into my workload, because it's like, I don't want to be an art dinosaur. I need to learn these new techniques. Seeing the amazing stuff people are doing with tablets, it's like, I want to learn that too. And so I now do my sketches and pencils digitally, print that out in blue line, and ink traditionally.
Right. Yes. So that's a smarter way to do it.
Yeah,
for sure. A lot easier. You could undo.
Undo
it. A lot more undoing.
The thing I find I still do this is, if I've been working digitally and then I go to work traditionally, like to go ink traditionally, I'll try to zoom in on the paper.
Yes.
Pinch, zoom. It's like, wait, I'm going on the tablet. This is paper. I'm no wonder it's not going to zoom.
It's not working.
And then I switch back to work digital, and I go to erase a digital pencil line, and then I'll brush my tablet as if there's eraser dust there. It's like, there's no dust. It's like my brain can't keep up with what I'm working on. It's pretty funny to catch myself doing that.
For sure. Yeah, right on. Oh, well, that's great. That's great. You were able to make that transition, for sure. Like, I pretty much do everything still traditionally, mainly because I tried doing it digitally, but then I keep zooming in to add more stuff. I can't stop myself from keeping the paper keeps me what's it called? I can't add more.
Right. You're kind of bound in. It's like, here are your limits. I found myself doing the same thing. Sometimes I'll zoom in and pencil too tightly, and then when I print it out to ink, it's like, oh dang, that's too small. So I go in with my graphite pencil and kind of rough in. Okay, this is the size I can actually. I rework the face that I
Right.
can actually see what I would be inking and course correct then. But starting to learn just how much detail do I need to put in the pencils and not waste time getting in so intricate that it's like in the physical world that is way too tiny.
Right, for sure. But I love that balance that you're actually inking traditionally
Yeah.
after because also, I know that sometimes you have the pencilers, they'll pencil it traditionally, they'll scan it in, send it to the inker prints it out. They'll do that, but now there's like 2 pieces of original art hanging
Right.
out there, and I saw, I was talking to some inker friends, and then they had customers complaining because they didn't know it was in the original pencil on the paper. They thought they were buying
Right.
the original pencil, and they felt bad. It's just an interesting thing about original art.
Yeah.
But it's cool that you still have that connection to the original by
Oh, yeah.
actually inking it yourself. Did you
Yes.
still use like India ink? You're still using?
I'm a Pigma Micron guy.
Micron. Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Microns, zebra brush pens, and Pentel Pocket brush pen is what I do most of my inking with.
Right on. Yeah, and Post-it notes too. You can't forget the Post-it notes.
Post-it I got so many Post-it notes. It's just like I buy them in bulk now because
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I was so wild to do a Post-it note sketch just for fun. I thought, do a little warm up. Hey, I'll just do it on Post-it note sketch. Just quick little warm up, post it, and then hey, can I buy that? It's like, okay, maybe I should do another one.
Yeah.
Now when I post them, they usually sell within an hour or two of posting. So it's
right on. Yeah.
it's fun to have that as one of my things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're the king of the Post-it notes. right there.
I'm just waiting for my 3M sponsorship.
Yeah. So what are you working on right now? So are you just doing cover work right now then?
No, I'm working on some comic book projects that will be coming out in 2022. I'm waiting for the publishers to announce those. So
Okay.
so that's what I'm noodling on. But still, tons of covers. More headshot covers are coming. Like I said, I got 6 this week that I need to do that will be coming out next year, and other types of covers as well. Not just the headshot covers, but other more traditional covers in the mix also.
Let's go back to the Extreme days. What would a typical day be like for you when you go to work at Extreme?
Let's see. I'd probably roll in between 9 and 10 in the morning, sit down and just go for it.
Right.
Either work on layouts. I worked with an inker, so all I did was pencils. So I take the script, do my layouts, and then bust right into the pencils. And that was kind of pretty much it. It's just like get into the page, get it drawn, move on to the next page. Go do lunch, maybe hit the comic shop, swing by Toys R Us, see which Todd McFarlane Spawn figures we can track down, and get back to the studio, and then work till 8, 9, 10, 1 a.m.
That doesn't surprise me because you're doing 2 pages a day. So it sounds like you really have that work discipline down, which you actually really do need in comics, that actual discipline to sit down and work. So what's your work day like today? Or what's your schedule like?
It's the same thing.
Exact thing.
I don't go to the comic shop, and there are no more Toys R Us's around. I mean, I'll hit the comic shop about once a month, but it wouldn't be like the weekly trip. So it's just get up, hit the drafting table here behind me, and start drawing. Whatever, gather reference, read my script, gather reference. Oh my gosh. Google image search is the most amazing thing. I was like, I wish I had this back in the 90s.
Yes, absolutely. Where you couldn't get
pouring through magazines and encyclopedias. The
magazines.
The reference files of photos. So yeah, Google, being able to just Google it, or now with the Marvel and DC Universe apps, I gotta draw a specific character. Okay, just pull up an issue that they are in. There we go. Just screen cap all these shots. When I was doing the Gwen Stacy book, I went through her entire appearance of Amazing Spider-Man and screen capped every page she was on.
Right on.
Just so I had every permutation of Gwen Stacy at the time, even though I was drawing her teenage high school years. It's like, I want to know all of her fashion choices through her college years, so it can inform how I might costume her for her high school years. So it's like so many great resources now for reference that makes drawing these comics a lot easier. If I need a specific type of helicopter, I can, type that in and there it is, instead of going to the toy store and hoping that they have that, Tomahawk helicopter that I need as a model to look at to draw. So so gather my reference, then just jump right into sketching it out, send those off for approval, and then move to the pencil stage, ink stage, start all over again.
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you discussed with us how you broke into the industry. So just say there's a time machine, and then you reverted back to yourself, and maybe just after college. So how would you try to break in today if you really needed to? Right? How would you go about doing that today?
Nowadays, there's like, I'd probably still do the same thing. Still draw my sample pages to go to cons, because meeting those editors face to face is valuable. And now getting your portfolio critiqued at a convention is different than when I was a kid. Back then, you just walked up to the Marvel booth or the DC booth, and there's an editor. You ask, "Do you have time to take a look at my portfolio?" And most of the times they would say, "Sure, let me take a look," because what else do they got to do? Now conventions are so crazy, you have to go into the portfolio lottery. You know, most big publishers, you submit your photocopy samples and then check the callback sheet the next day. Sometimes at cons, they'll have a dedicated time frame where you can queue up to go get a critique, as you know, you wait in line to meet with an editor, sit down at a table and go over your portfolio with them. And those are fantastic ways to meet an editor, especially the queue up and wait your turn. Tables are fantastic, which are a lot of cons. I know they have them at Emerald City, and I think C2E2 as well. So getting that face-to-face is fantastic. So I'd probably still do that. And I'd also still do my creator-owned stuff, still make my mini comics. But now I have so many more options on how to do that. There's the one-off publishing, so I can, because my mini comics I made back in the 90s were Kinko's printouts. They were black and white ash can comics. That I would hand off, which were fine, but now it's like I can do full color, I can do computer lettering, I can really make a slick finished product that you can hand off. Here's my full size, full color, professionally done comic. Because for editors, sometimes that's easier for them to find new talent, is let me read the comic and get that comic experience from either you, the writer, or you, the artist, you, the colorist, and I like this. How would this person look on this Spider-Man story, or this Black Widow story, or this, Black Lightning story? Just whatever the publisher is, it's like, cool stuff. It gives them an experience, which is what they want. That's what they want to give their readers. So if they can experience that from your finished work, then they can see how they could apply it to what they're working on. But then there's also digital comics. I can post my comics online. No overhead. It's just take the time to draw it up, post it, start building up an audience. And then also, you just never know when an editor might come across your work online. And I've gotten work that way. It blew my mind. A case in point story, I'm a big Mystery Science Theater fan, if you might not have noticed here with Tom Servo and Crow here in the background.
Yes.
Huge Mystery Science Theater fan. Loved the show since '92. When the Netflix series came out, the new seasons, I drew Mystery Science Theater fan art of the new host and new mad scientists of Jonah Ray, Felicia Day, Patton Oswalt, and the bots, and posted that to Twitter and Instagram. And I'd heard rumor that Dark Horse might be doing a Mystery Science Theater comic book. And it's like, I want to be a part of that. I'd say a few months later, 5-6 months later, the Dark Horse editor contacts me and says, "Hey, you want to make some Mystery Science Theater comics?" It's like,
wow.
Wait, what? How did you know? Turns out the creator of the show, Joel Hodgson, had seen my fan art that I had done, liked it, and told the editor, "Hey, can we get this guy to draw our comic book?" Wow. And so it's like something I want to do, unbeknownst to me. That's how fan art got me a sweet gig, and now I'm in tight with the Mystery Science Theater crew. I've done lots of stuff for them, a poster for their most recent Kickstarter. So it's like Joel is now in my phone book, on my phone contact list. It's like I get emails and voicemails from him. It's like, that's a fanboy moment that I kind of freak out over, but you just never know who's going to see your work, and you could get a job from the stuff you post online. So I think that's a really amazing thing, that any of us can now get our artwork out there. A lot more competition, but you do what you do, and you never know when you might rise to the top.
Right on. Would you say that I know that school helped you a lot to get to where you need to go? How about today? You think that's as necessary as it was back then?
It all depends, I think, on the person. For me, school helped mature me. having an instructor helped me kind of grow in ways, not just in my skills themselves, but how to be a professional person. And I really, really needed that because I was really, really immature. I still wonder about my maturity level here nowadays. But we have lots that I like to kid myself.
There you go.
We have the wealth of information out there now with YouTube tutorials and blogs. It's amazing to see what young artists are learning, allowing themselves to learn and teach themselves by the stuff that they're watching. People are learning from my YouTube channels, from my playlists, like my Copic marker playlist. Someone at the Phoenix store signing event said, your Copic marker tutorials help improve my coloring game. That's like, I learned how to blend by seeing how you do it. So there's so many ways young artists can learn. It really depends on the temperament and maturity of that artist and what it is that they need to level up to get to that pro level. For me, it was school, but that was one of the few options I had. Maybe my work ethic at that time could have got me there by watching just YouTube tutorials and Patreon tutorials. I could have subscribed to certain Patreon accounts that would teach me the things I needed, and I put my school money towards that. Who knows? I'll never know because that just didn't exist when I was 18, 19 years old. But now, heck, when I was started working on a tablet, I was looking up Clip Studio Paint tutorials on YouTube. It's like, help me understand how to work this machine. So there's always something we can learn. And we should always be learning, no matter where we are in our career. There's always something new to learn, to grow, to expand our art arsenal, to think in new ways, to create new ways, so we don't get stagnant. So we can always find new levels in our skills that we might not even have realized were there.
Right on. Oh, that's fantastic. So along those lines, then, as we start to finish off here, and again, thank you so much for your time and being so generous with us. And I must admit, I see those acting skills coming through, or those entertainment skills. I feel it coming through, my friend. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're still there. So let's go.
Wonderful.
We should start a show, my friend. You and me. We'll start a new show together.
That sounds good.
Let's do it. So, what would your advice? There's a kid growing up wants to become a comic book artist. What would your advice be for them?
My advice is learn whatever you can. Study, train, draw as much as possible. Get used to drawing a lot, because if you become a comic book artist, you're going to be drawing all day, every day. And that's not just when you feel the inspiration. Sometimes you have to push beyond that to get the job done, to meet the deadline so you get that next job. So if you want to work full time, get used to drawing on a regular daily basis. I draw anywhere from 8 hours as a short day for me to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to do all the things that I want to do. And then there's still things yet left undone, because like side project stuff, personal project stuff that I can't get to just yet, but it's still so much to do. And so it's like training for almost like a decathlon. You've got to have the stamina and strength and fortitude to just push through, solve those problems, and move to the next panel and to design and to draw. So learn your life drawing skills, perspective skills, and design skills, because design skills come into designing a comic book page, on how to lead the reader's eye from one panel to the next in the clearest, most concise, and exciting, interesting, scary, fun, funny, weird way to tell that story. Because we're not just artists, we're storytellers. We're visual storytellers. We're, working with a writer. If we're not writing our own stories, we're working with a writer as a team to create these stories. So it's not just, I just draw a pretty picture. I'm telling a story. I'm trying to create a mood and an excitement. And it's learning a language. Drawing comic books is a language, because you're communicating to your reader. And the more you can immerse yourself in that, the more fluent you'll become at that language. And that came for me from studying comics, just looking at my favorite artists, studying how they put together the page, and then my own trial and error of, I'm going to try to speak this language. And when my first many years, it was very clunky. I could barely have a visual conversation. But the more I immerse myself in it, like if you want to learn how to speak Spanish fluently, move to Mexico, where that's the only thing you can speak, and you're going to get far more fluent at it. So immerse yourself into comics and have fun with it. Have fun, embrace the challenges, and have fun. For me, that's why I say keep on drawing, keep having fun. because the more I'm having fun, the more likely I'm going to want to keep doing what I'm doing. And that gives me a better chance of moving forward down my path and leveling up. Might not happen overnight, but sometimes it's those little tiny baby steps that you don't realize how far you've gotten until you look back. So every step, every drawing, every sketch is a step on that journey.
Thank you for that. You know what? I feel like I want to draw right now. After that speech,
my job is done here. Thank you so much, James. Good night.
With that made me think a little bit, though, because remember before you were telling me that you heard that John Byrne does 2 pages a day, and
right.
that kind of helped train you. That perception that you had to do 2 pages a day. How much did that help you in terms of your work ethic, and how that kind of helped you with the way you work today? You know.
Yeah, it helped me immensely because I thought if that's the level I have to be to work at Marvel, I want to be there. I want to be at Marvel. I want to be anything as close to what John Byrne has done. And I'm still yet to hit that John Byrne level. But it's just it gave me focus. It gets like, okay, this is what I got to do. And so a lot of young artists, they get real good and then they have to build their speed up. For me, I think I built my speed up, and then the quality had to climb to match it. But I could get the job done, and sometimes it's the spark in the art. There's that energy inside the art. So maybe my art wasn't the prettiest, but there was a spark that had editors and publishers that they saw something that they wanted from me. And so I kept working on I tried to go from that ugly duckling to the swan, but I was a very fast ugly duckling. This ugly duckling can get the job done. Right. So I feel I've moved more into a swan stage than that ugly duckling I was, 30 years ago.
Right. So if someone told you, if you heard, oh, it's a page a day, do you think that would have changed the outlook of your career, maybe?
Yeah, well, I would have focused on getting 1 page a day, and I probably, if I was just doing a page a day, maybe the ugly duckling would have become the swan sooner.
Maybe.
But that swan would be moving at a page a day.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It would be a moderately paced swan.
There you go.
So it's and that's the interesting thing. And another thing I would say to young Todd or young artists is, and this was one of the biggest lessons I learned back in my early 30s, was stop comparing my work to other artists. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I have my own experiences and resources and opportunities, just as you have your own experiences, resources, and opportunities that has shaped us as artists, that are shaping them as artists. That's their own resources and opportunities. So for me, I overheard 2 pages a day. That thrust me into a path, a trajectory that I ran with, and I zigzagged this way. And you learned your things, and you zigzagged your way. And everyone's going to zig and zag. I don't think any of us walk a straight line in our journey. We're twisting and turning, and you just never know what's around that bend that challenges us and shapes us and moves us to another level that makes us all different artists. And that's what I love about it, because it's all different styles and all different things to see. I love a variety of different styles. So when I learned to stop comparing my work to Jim Lee or J. Scott Campbell or Arthur Adams or Mark Silvestri or name any other artist that's out there, I could easily compare my work to theirs and be dejected and feel like, oh, I suck, they're awesome, why do I try? But I still love to draw, so I'd still kind of fight through that. When I learned to leave that baggage behind, and it's I'll compare my artwork to what I did yesterday. Is what I drew today maybe just a little bit better than what I did yesterday, or at least on the same par of what I did yesterday? Cool. I still love to look at Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell and Arthur Adams and Mark Silvestri art and all the other 1,000 people I follow on Instagram. I still, love seeing their art, and I'm just I let that inspire me to go do artwork, not go, they're awesome, I suck. And I can still slip into that because I'm a human being, and we're all going to struggle as human beings with positive and negative feelings. But the sooner I can take hold of negative feelings and or thoughts and aim towards the positive, keep on drawing, keep having fun, I find my day goes better, the artwork goes better, and I'm happier with how the day went than if I just sit there and beat myself over the head going, why aren't you Jim Lee? It's we don't need another Jim Lee. We have one. His name's Jim Lee. Right. We need a Todd Nauck. We need a James Rise. We need all sorts of different voices, so we have all sorts of flavors out there.
Right on. That's fantastic. Fantastic advice all around for sure, my friend. You are quite the inspiration. And this was a very,
Oh,
very
thank you.
inspirational, motivational talk for sure. If people want to find you online to get more of that inspiration, my friend, where can they find you, my friend?
Let's see. They can find me on YouTube. Search Todd Nauck on YouTube. I'm at Todd Nauck on Instagram and Twitter. I have an Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. And if you go to toddnauck.com, it'll link you to all my social media pages.
Right on. That's fantastic, and we're looking forward to all the books that you have coming out. And again, like me and Mark here, our producer, we've been big fans of yours for the longest time. A lot of stuff you did at Extreme also was very inspirational for me, trying to get into comics as well. You know, I love Wild Card. Are we going to see Wild Card again one of these days, maybe?
I hope so. I've got this one-shot story I've kind of been noodling on the side. So I try to throw in a panel every now and again when I get some free time. So I do hope to have at least another one-shot to put out in the hopefully not too distant future.
Right on. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Todd. We look forward to all of that. And thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you.